Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Joe, he's Nick, and we are now back on the air here on the Nick and Joe Show. Okay, so I just had a little bit of noise in the background here in my on my headset. So, well, it was more than that. I was listening to a conversation Nick was having with one of our sources, calling us with some background information on the American election and the allegations about vote flipping with the Dominion machines, etc. And Nick, on that, and we're not going to get into too much detail because we don't have all of the details, except to say that our sources are pretty good on this stuff. And I don't want to be conspiracy theorist in that, but I will say this: quite apart from what we were just talking about off air. And we can't bring anything into this right now. We don't have all of the details, and it's separate from what we want to talk about. But just to get this off my chest, Nick, the Dominion voting machines that everybody is saying that that they don't do weighted voting, and there's no algorithm to change votes or to count some votes as higher and some votes lower, etc. I could tell you from personal knowledge that the software in these machines has been designed to allow for weighted voting. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because some elections, depending on how the constitution of whatever the entity is written, does allow for weighted voting. And we use these machines in, for instance, the conservative voting here, federal Conservative Party voting here in Canada, because we have both ranked ballots and weighted voting, where every riding has 100 points, irrespective of the number of people that actually are members of the individual riding association. There are 338 of them. And if you have 35 people in one riding association and you have 3,500 in the other riding association, both of those riding associations only get 100 votes when it comes to determining voting for the leader of the party. And those votes are proportional to the actual voting that goes on. And then you have to throw in all of the problems that come with ranked voting. In other words, you rank who you want, who's your first choice, who's your second choice, so the system was designed to allow for you to punch in the parameters for the calculations, and then, because the calculations are, quite frankly, at least in the federal level here in the Conservative Party, because those calculations are somewhat complicated, you really have to do it through computing. So you will rely on the system and its software to do the calculations and tell you what the outcomes are. Now, you should be able to audit those. That is to say, you should be able to, after the fact, take the raw data and spend the time with the raw data to verify, to ensure that there were no problems with it. But the point I'm making here is that for all of the people out there who are saying, all of the talk about algorithms and being able to shift votes around and all that's all bunk and it's invented and it's fictitious. I'm telling you from personal, no, it's not fictitious. They were designed that way because there actually are elections right here in Canada that we do weighted voting. We don't do this in a general election. I'm a very big fan of paper ballots, and that's what we do. We do the paper ballots and we count all of the ballots by hand. We do the same thing in provincial elections. We don't do that in municipal elections now, though. We do voting machines. So the technology exists, and we do use it, and we use it for non-nefarious purposes. So I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Okay.
But that's not what we wanted to talk about, is it?
No, it's not.
What we wanted to talk about was the latest, and I think probably the most intriguing legal move that's going on in the States right now. And this is not the Trump campaign that's doing this. This is the state of Texas has brought forward to the Supreme Court an application asking the Supreme Court to intervene to undo. Or essentially, I guess I would say, to throw out the results in 4 of the states, how they voted in the last general election. And those 4 states are, hang on just a second, the 4 states are, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And the state of Texas is alleging that those 4 states violated the U.S. Constitution and their state constitutions when in how they conducted the elections, particularly around the rules for counting mail-in ballots, etc. And I don't want to get into the details. It's a long application. It gets into some finer points of law, etc. But now they filed this suit. This is, again, I want to stress this. This is not Donald Trump. This is not the Trump campaign. This is not Trump supporters. This is the actual government of the state of Texas has made this application or this petition to the Supreme Court. And by the way, the reason for that is because the U.S. Constitution spells out that when there's a dispute between states, that the court that has jurisdiction to resolve those disputes is the Supreme Court of the United States. So it's not a trick here to bypass anybody. This is the way that it's been set out. It's a part of the U.S. Constitution. And now that was yesterday where they filed this suit. And so far, as of 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time today, 17 other states have filed motions with the Supreme Court of the United States backing the Texas lawsuit. So that's 17, and this is not the Trump campaign. And I don't know whether the Trump campaign, whether President Trump is going to intervene or not. It would surprise me if he doesn't intervene, being that he has a personal, obviously, interest in this. I would say, if I was advising the Trump campaign, I probably would advise them not to intervene, just to let it play out, because I think they don't necessarily add anything to the strength of the case. But I think this is serious. This is not, and here's the thing, they're not alleging voter fraud. They don't care about that. All they're saying is this is a country that the law has to apply to everyone, and it has to apply equally. And the way that these states in the middle of the election season changed the voting rules in their states was against the law. It was unconstitutional. And in doing that, they have, and having an effect on the election one way or the other, what they've done, those 4 states, is that they have essentially invalidated the voting of all of the other states that followed the Constitution. So
now
that's essentially that's part of their argument. It's the Equal Protection Clause in the U.S. Constitution.
Let me ask you this question: how long will it take, do you think, for the Supreme Court? Because there's a timeline here. I mean, they have to have it done. What was the date? I thought it was the 8th.
No.
Which was yesterday.
No. The 8th is when the individual states seated, that's called seating, the Electoral College from those states. So, but the Electoral College vote is not until, I think, the 14th of December. And then after that, the Electoral College vote is again, the 14th of December. And then the Congress has to certify the Electoral College vote. So while you are correct that there are deadlines the deadlines are not as immediate or as solid red lines, so to speak, as you might think they are. But nonetheless, the Supreme Court has issued an order to the 4 states who, in this case, would be the defendants, that they have until, I think it's 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, that would be December the 10th, Thursday, December the 10th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, to respond, to file with the court their responses individually or collectively to the motion that's been brought by the state of Texas. Now, again, with the support as of 5:30 Eastern Time this afternoon. I don't know. I'm looking at the clock, and we're now at 9:15 Eastern Time on December the 9th. So it's possible that other states by now have already joined in. But as for 5:30, 17 other states had joined in. And again, this is big news because it could ultimately affect the outcome of the election, number one. It's big news, number two, because it's not the Trump campaign that's doing this. This is the state of Texas has initiated this, and 17 other states, the governments of 17 other states, are agreeing and have filed now motions in support or documents in support of the state of Texas. That's point number two, and point number three, and this is perhaps the biggest of them all, and that is that none of this has to do with voter fraud. They don't care. None of this mentions voter fraud. As far as I haven't read the application, but none of this is based on voter fraud. In other words, we're not saying that the Dominion machines did this. We're not saying that these mail-in ballots were double counted. We're saying that the court in Pennsylvania cannot rule contrary to the legislature, which is what happened in Pennsylvania, for instance, okay, is that the elected legislature set the rules for mail-in ballots and the counting of mail-in ballots, and the court then intervened and said, no, we're going to change the rules, and they did. But the court has no jurisdiction to do that. The Constitution makes it very clear that it is the state legislatures, not the governor, not the election commission, not the bureaucracy, not the public service, not the courts, not with all due respect, God Almighty himself. It is the state legislature that sets the rules. And in each of those 4 states, some other entity, some other group came in and said, we're going to change the rules. And the state of Texas is saying, hang on a second, you've changed the rules, but we haven't. And the other states that are getting behind us haven't changed the rules. And our electors, our voters, followed the Constitution, and you guys have not followed the Constitution and potentially have affected the outcome of this election thereby, and as a consequence, your voting shouldn't be